we did so many of those that I basically fired myself because you guys have all the templates now. You don't need to.
Yeah. We know what it needs to look like. Yeah. And
Really
I would
good.
say I definitely became a better copywriter working with you in terms of having a conversational tone and short conversational emails, as opposed to like our old emails were very corporate.
Welcome back with another client success interview with my friend, Richard McGirr. Richard, how are you?
I'm doing really good, Nabil. How are you?
Very good, sir. I know you're a big shot CEO, so please introduce yourself to the audience, tell them who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Richard McGirr. I'm the co-founder of Property Llama and Property Llama Capital. We have a software as a service app for real estate investors to help them understand the financial performance of their real estate portfolio and find new investments that can help them reach their goals faster. And we do that through the Property Llama Capital side of the business, which means we help put together real estate deals and other passive investing options.
I'll just say how we started working together. I first noticed you after we connected on LinkedIn. I thought I was cold DMing you on Twitter, but it turns out that you'd been following me on Twitter for a while. So we just were orbiting each other's circles.
Yeah. So I'd also asked you for a quote at my previous business, at which time you had said you need some case studies before you come talk to a copywriter, and you were correct. But yeah, I've been following you for a long time, fan of your work, fan of your Twitter account, and actually still a fan of your newsletter.
I don't remember this quote business. Which business did you ask for a quote for?
It was when I had an IT services business, and I was like, I need a cold LinkedIn outreach campaign put together. And you're like, yeah, I can do that. Do you have any case studies? I was like, not really. And you're like, okay, you need to go to Case Study Buddy and get some case studies, and then we'll talk. And I was like,
that sounds like me because it's good advice.
I know that's really good advice.
So I contacted you at an opportune time because you were talking to another copywriter. You guys had some ideas for launching webinars and stuff like that, doing cold traffic. And I guess I messaged you at the perfect time. What was the first few projects that we worked on and how did those turn out?
Yeah, the project that we started with was a webinar-driven cold traffic campaign, because the value proposition of our company is that small landlords don't have the tools or software to help them understand the detailed financial performance of their rental properties and how those rental properties perform in aggregate in terms of all your properties at once. People usually have certain properties that are doing great and usually also certain other ones that aren't doing great. And if you can address those issues, these investors can hit their goals much faster, which is usually something like, I need $10,000 a month in cash flow so I can quit my job or retire. And so we put together the Portfolio Analysis Mastermind, which was a webinar campaign where we walk investors through the process of how to think about their portfolio and how all these returns come together, and then how these returns basically mean, when are you going to hit your real estate goals and hit them in 30 years, or can you make a few moves and hit them in 5 or 10? Obviously, that's an enormous difference. So we'd run that campaign to our list because we had about 5,000-6,000 people on the list. And then we wanted to take it out to new audiences. That's going to require a much better landing page, much better collateral in general in order to activate and reach cold traffic. And so we did that. It was a meta Facebook, Instagram ads driven campaign to a landing page, which Nabil wrote. Then we had an onboarding sequence, a follow-up sequence, different automations depending on if you had attended or not. We had a closeout in terms of, hey, we're taking the recording down, last chance, etc. The campaign performed really well because we are looking for people who have several rental properties. The thing about the real estate industry is that you could argue that the majority of people consuming real estate content own no rentals and will never own any rentals because they can't afford it. Unfortunately, it requires a significant amount of money to buy your first property, which a lot of people just don't have. And the thing is that those people are not our audience because we're trying to sell funds. Funds are very expensive. And the reason we like the Portfolio Analysis Mastermind is that the problem we solve is people who have multiple properties. That is very at the forefront of the campaign. Is this is for you to understand all your properties. And these people are millionaires. I think that we had 40% of signups indicated that they had 3 or more properties. So this is a person who is probably a millionaire in net worth. We were acquiring these users after liquidation of some of the ad spend through upsells and choruses and stuff like that at about $12 a user, which is like phenomenal when you consider that 40% are millionaires, because basically they indicated how many properties they had when they signed up for the webinar. So that was a huge win. Being able to acquire users like that at $12, I think that's objectively amazing. And it's people who are interested in real estate investing.
Yeah, that cost per lead number sounds super, super low. Usually it's $40-$50 a lead for even like an internet marketing audience, not even something higher ticket than what you guys are doing over at Property Llama. So that number is very attractive.
Yeah.
So we had set it up like a proper internet marketer webinar funnel, free to show up live. You can buy the recordings, and we had upsells. Then come to find out, like, we're legally not allowed to sell stuff. Like, that's what you told me, right?
So what happened is, because we sell private equity investments, we should not be giving financial advice. And one of the tests for financial advice is if you charge for it. And so, we had to scrap the upsells and stuff like that. Even though, unsurprisingly, the people who bought all that stuff were the highest engaged people. One of them did a $100K IRA investment at Ironton. Yeah, it was great in concept. We just turned out we weren't allowed to do that, or it was on advice of counsel that we should not be doing that. Instead of a $12 lead, it's a $16 lead. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can afford to pay even up to $100, $200 a lead.
I'd say in our industry, people are paying $100, $200 a lead. $12 is incredible. The standard in our industry is much higher than that.
And then after, we'll talk about all of the other projects that we did together. But then after that, after doing that cold traffic Facebook ads method, we stumbled on, or you stumbled on, some of your research, a different way of getting qualified leads to probably Llama via native ads. Can you talk about the BiggerPockets partnership?
Yeah. My partner is an influencer who's had various shows and does videos on BiggerPockets, which is the largest, you call it like retail real estate site in terms of a retail investor, a normal small landlord. They're enormous. If you type real estate in Apple Podcasts, BiggerPockets is number one. That's how I found out about BiggerPockets. I was literally typing real estate into a podcast app. We were offered the opportunity to buy sponsored videos because we were producing videos on the BiggerPockets YouTube channel, except we weren't allowed to show the software, even though it's highly relevant to real estate education. We sponsored the episode. We got a really good deal on it because BiggerPockets likes us and knows our content. Number two, we're the ones producing the video anyways. So we actually sponsored the episode and used the software to teach important real estate wealth building concepts, which is a great fit for us because we help people visualize their portfolio. And so we're able to, it was a 10-minute live demo of the system. Here's what happens when you take an underperforming property and 1031 it into an apartment building or sell it and buy a fund, and look how much faster you hit your goals. We sponsored that video and that delivered us leads at a similar cost, but significantly higher engagement because these are people who had watched a 10-minute presentation and they had trust from BiggerPockets compared to cold traffic on Facebook at 9 p.m. and they see an ad and they're like, all right, I guess I'll fill out this form. Show up and activation rates are what you expect from meta campaigns like that. But this one, we got much higher activation and also people wanting to schedule sales calls and everything else like that. And for us, the important part is, did you complete your portfolio? We were getting like 60, 70% portfolio completion. Well, the benefit of that is then we know exactly how much money you have. And if you have a lot of money, we call you. Yeah, that's the secret sauce of property loan.
And that's the other reason why the software is free, because you can't sell the software.
We wouldn't be able to sell the software and do the comparisons.
Okay. And so that's obviously the benefits. Like you're just aggregating data of real estate investors with several rental properties.
It's a lead magnet.
The cost per lead is similar with the cold traffic funnel versus the native ads funnel with BiggerPockets. But on BiggerPockets, you get a much higher software activation, which is the actual end goal that you wanted.
Software activation and then everything else, because people who create their portfolios, usually when our sales team reaches out and says, hey, do you want to have a strategy consultation or talk about your real estate goals? About 50% of those people say yes if we follow up with them and reach out, versus people who sign up for a webinar and then never took any further action. We tried to text them and everything else, but very low take up rate on that compared to once people get their data in the system, usually they're very surprised by what they see in both a good and a bad way, because usually they have a lot more equity than they thought they did. However, the equity is not working hard. And so this is the fundamental purpose of the software, to show someone that. We have all these ideas for you. We put together some scenarios where you can hit your goals in 5 or 10 years instead of 30. Do you want to talk? And a good portion of those people are willing to get on the phone with us. If you talk about a $25 or $30 appointment cost with this type of user, I think that's really great.
On average, let's say somebody decides to do business with you. What's the ticket size? Like 200K or 500K?
1,500K is the minimum.
They're worth a lot.
Yeah. Okay. That's not revenue. That's how much the investment is. And then I'm not going to share my margin. We make a good amount. We don't make the full 100K, that's for sure. But we do well.
So then off the back of the success of that campaign, we decided, okay, you guys need a lot more copy, landing pages, video scripts, email list management. And so then I started taking over all of that stuff and basically taking a lot of work off of your marketing team's plate. So tell us, how was that experience working together?
We're a content-driven company. Like I said, my partner is an influencer. We have an affiliated podcast, YouTube channel, everything else like that. So we're constantly running webinars to our list, launching new funds, launching boot camps, launching stuff like that. And throwing those campaigns requires a lot of copy. You need landing pages, you need emails, onboarding sequence, follow-up sequences. We really liked working with you on the first couple of campaigns that we did. Not only were they successful, but you were very easy to work with and took a lot off our team's plate when we were really crunched. And yeah, we structured a retainer where you would help us with our landing pages, emails, etc. And then it went very well. It was nice being able to write up a little campaign brief. You joined 1 call a week with us. It was a couple calls a week to start with and onboard you. We got down to 1 call a week. We used Jira, say, hey, we need a landing page and 3 emails for this campaign. We'd have a due date like next week. And then, you would post it. And here's all the emails. Here's everything. Then eventually that grew to also helping us with a large cleanup of our active campaign, our mail automation software. The other thing you did that was high impact, probably one of the highest impact things, was we had 16,000 contacts, but only 4,000 people on our email list. And that's because we had like auto unsubscribes if you hadn't opened any emails, kinds of stuff like that. A lot of people who had been added from in-person events, but never added to our email list. We did a resurrection campaign with you and it doubled our list almost. And most of those people are still there. We have a 3,000 person list to start with. And now that list is like 50. A lot of those people from, like I said, the reactivation, and they keep clicking and buying. That was a really good campaign.
And then I think we also updated the onboarding emails for your SaaS with GIFs and showing people how to use the software. That was a good campaign because remember you recorded the onboarding walkthrough and I just chopped those GIFs up and then we put them in the emails. So now you have a nice proper SaaS onboarding campaign as well, which helps with the activation.
Oh yeah, that helps a lot. And also we're going 100 miles an hour like every startup. And so you should have simple things like an onboarding series. It was really nice. I remember we talked with you. You're like, okay, just go record a video of signing up and using the software. And I did that. And now we have a new onboarding campaign. So that's been great too.
Yeah. And we also did stuff like redoing your Property Llama homepage.
Yeah.
So just curious, before we worked together, had you guys worked with copywriters before? Did you have any experience working with copywriters in Property Llama?
No, we hadn't. I'd worked with a copywriter at a previous business. That guy's prices got absolutely out of control. It started high where he wrote some landing pages for us. And then I came back to him like 6 months later for more work. And he's I've quintupled my prices. And I did not get a ton of value for money from that guy versus working with you. We got a lot of value for money. You augmented our marketing department, which we really needed at the time, especially because, like I said, we're a content and media company. That means we send lots of emails. We write lots of landing pages. Just having someone that we could count on who would always deliver good work and on time was invaluable.
I think what I noticed was that before, when you guys didn't have a copywriter, you were moving a lot slower because everything had to go through you and Chris. You were workshopping the copy and things like that. But now you come up with the ideas, and then Julie is the creative director, quarterbacks the project. I'm reporting to her, and we were popping out deliverables left and right.
Yeah, we basically highly automated the process. We had a whole workflow built in Jira where we would just fill out the form for a webinar and it would generate like 80 tasks. Probably 5 of those would be for you. Write landing page on this, and here's the brief built into the ticket. And yeah, it was just a very well-oiled machine.
And we did so many of those that I basically fired myself because you have all the templates now. You don't need to.
Yeah. We know what it needs to look like. Yeah. And I would say I definitely became a better copywriter working with you in terms of having a conversational tone and short conversational emails, as opposed to like our old emails were very corporate. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We have 6 things to talk about today and yada, 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 as opposed to, hi, I think we have a great deal for you. You need to do these 3 things in order to invest. Check out the webinar, do this. And that performs so much better. And they're just easier to read emails.
Yeah. And once you see it, it's like impossible to unsee. But before you see it, you're stuck in that corporate jargon.
Yeah.
And you see the other way and it's much better.
We do everything like first person conversational emails now. Yeah. And it takes a while because you really just have to deprogram yourself. And you're like, no, just write how you talk. What are you trying to say? Just trying to say.
What would you say to any business owner in your position who is thinking of hiring a copywriter, but they're on the fence about whether they should go ahead and make the investment?
I think you should absolutely make the investment. You took us through finding our brand books, writing a brand guide, making sure that we were ticking obvious boxes like running a resurrection campaign, making sure that we have all of our lists segmented properly, and having someone competent who can handle something so time consuming and important, like running your email list. For our company, all the revenue is driven through the list at all times. It's just so important. You need a professional.
That's everybody's business. They just don't realize it.
I agree. That's probably just an evolution of me as a business person.